If you've been following my other social media pages, you'll see that recently I've been using this Urban Access 15 backpack from Thinktank a lot recently on jobs and just, from day to day. I used it when I went to Tokyo. I've used it quite a lot. And the more I've used it, the more I've come to love it. And it's been pretty much my main bag when, I need to carry more than just one or two things. So today we're going to talk about this bag, why I like it, what's so special about it, and some of my small remaining frustrations. Plus, we'll draw some comparisons between this and the Peak Design Everyday Backpack. So let's get into it. Hey, I'm Scott and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, thank you for watching. Please consider subscribing. We do all kinds of unboxings, tests, reviews, tutorials, anything photo and video related. So if you like the content today, please do consider subscribing. Hit that little bell icon when you do so to make sure you get notifications when new content is uploaded. So anyway, like I said, what I've got here is the Urban Access 15 from Thinktank. This is a relatively new bag. There are some different sizes in this line. This is the largest, I believe, and it's not huge compared to some other Thinktank backpacks, which has always been one of my main gripes about their backpack style camera bags is I'm pretty small and they're pretty huge and boxy. So that's why I've really gravitated towards the Peak Design Everyday Backpack over the years for backpack style carry, because it's just a little bit slimmer. It feels more casual, especially if I'm going out with the family or, walking around for a while. It doesn't feel like I'm going to bump into everybody and everything. But this backpack is kind of in between. It's still a little bit boxy and still a little bit larger than the Peak Design Everyday Backpack, for example, but it's a lot smaller and feels more casual than a lot of the other Thinktank backpacks. On top of that, they've got a lot of new stuff for Thinktank bags included in this: new pockets, new styles of dividers and stuff inside, different ways to access your gear. So we're going to take a look at the things that I like most about this, the things that I think stand out the most. We're not going to go over every single detail. You can see plenty of pictures on their website, but we're going to talk about the things that I really like, and I'll talk about a few of the things that still kind of bother me just a little bit, but along the way we'll draw those conclusions, like I said, to the Peak Design Everyday Backpack. Now, like I said, this here is the 15, which is the largest of this range. They do also have a 13 that's basically the same, but obviously a little bit smaller, and that 15 and 13, I believe, relates to the size of the laptop that this can carry inside of it. And then they do have a couple of smaller versions which have a lot of the same features but in a slightly different design. This Peak Design bag here is the Everyday Backpack 20 liter. They do also have a larger one, the 30 liter. So this is the smaller of those two. So the size difference can come down to that a bit. What I am curious about is the 13 here, how it's smaller, if it's smaller overall or if it's more shallow or if it's shorter. I'm not exactly sure because I haven't had the chance to see it in person, but it's going to be a little bit smaller than this. However, I'm not quite sure if it's as small as the smaller Peak Design backpack or not. So right off the bat, some of the things that struck me as similar between these two bags is the fact that they have this top flap here, although it works a little bit differently on the Thinktank bag. This one, when you pull it down, it will unlatch and then you can access the inside of the bag here, which is the top section of the bag, which you can also slightly access from the side. And then to lock it, you kind of pull it down. It's like a stretch and lock type latch here. With this, you have these locks where you kind of push it. They're like clasps, but they're not the typical squeeze and release clasps. They're slightly magnetic, so when you put this down, it's going to kind of hold itself down a little bit, but then you can just lift it up. And when you really want to shut it, you can slide that under the clip and it will just kind of magnetically snap into place really, really easily, just like that. So they're a little bit different, and this also does not open the top of the bag. This will open a front flap here that's kind of flat, although it runs the entire front of the bag. And I like putting things like my white balance card or documents and stuff like that into this front pouch, things that I might access a little bit more frequently while shooting. And then you can, just magnetically close it quickly like that while you're using that, and then open it up, put things away, and then you can snap it down more permanently. It took a little bit of time to get used to this snap type system here, but once I got used to it, I actually really, really like it. And it's nice to have that storage on the front of the bag, which is something you don't have with the Peak Design. The top section access for the Thinktank bag actually opens from the rear, and it's a flap that's on the top of the bag, and then you have this dedicated section inside for some smaller stuff. I've put like lens adapters, a small camera, things like my camera batteries, memory card pouches and stuff like that in here. Smaller accessories. There are elastic mesh pockets on both sides here, as well as some regular standard pockets on the back, and I've used that to put like lens caps when I'm not using them. Memory cards again, things like that. And then there's one more pocket, a mesh pocket on the inside of the top flap, and that's fairly large. Again, you can use that for like a color checker. I have some pain medicine in there right now, little band-aids and stuff, things that you never know when you might need, that I always keep in most of my bags. But this is separate from the rest of the bag. The top section of the Peak Design bag is technically part of the main body of the bag, and depending on how you arrange those dividers inside, you can use it differently, either as a top section or as part of the main body. If you look at the bag from the side, you can also see that the shoulder straps attach below that, and the back section of the bag also opens below that. So this whole top section is kind of like something that was added on top of the bag, and that gives it a little bit more height. So it can get a little bit larger because it does come up higher than your shoulders, whereas the Peak Design is just a standard backpack with shoulder straps that come right up to the top. So that at first honestly bothered me a little bit, but the more I've used it, the more I've gotten used to it. And again, my biggest complaint is just because I'm small. I don't want something huge. However, I think that this is the kind of borderline maximum of what I would use in terms of a backpack size, and I will put this on in a second to show you how big it is on my body. The other thing that struck me right off the bat is the fact that these both have side access on both sides of the bag, so you can access the main body. You can pull out your cameras from the side while you're still wearing the bag without having to put it down, which is very, very useful, and I really like that feature. Again, though, this does work slightly differently. One of the differences that I have noticed that at first I didn't like, but again, I kind of, I'm getting used to it. It still doesn't mean I like it, but I am getting used to it, is the fact that the Peak Design will zipper outwards, away from your body. So let me do this awkwardly here as I'm holding both backpacks. As you zipper it outward from your body, the zipper is not going to be interfering with you. It's not awkward because it's away from your body. It just feels easier to open, whereas the zipper on the Thinktank bag opens towards your body. So the part that opens is towards your body. Now, one benefit of that is that this is close to your body when you open it. You don't have to worry about things falling out forwards, which, safety wise could be nice, but it does mean that when it's on your body, this can be a little bit trickier to open, and sometimes if you're opening it from the bottom, it can get stuck on this flap here, the shoulder strap here. It can be a little bit tight, I guess you could say, and not as smooth as opening the Peak Design bag now. Again, I've gotten used to that, and if you open it from the top instead of opening it from the bottom, I find it to be easier, but it is something that is, I guess you could say, significantly different between these two bags because it does affect the usability to a small degree. While we're looking at the sides of these bags though, I want to point out that the side pockets on here are a bit different. Peak Design has this kind of elastic expanding bag that kind of closes with a little bit of a magnet on the top there. And it's a little bit tight if you want to put like a plastic bottle of drink or something in there. It's a little bit tight. You can do it, but it is a little bit tight. And the magnet works okay, but you still do have some openings in the top here, whereas this bag has a strap that you have to pull open to loosen the pocket, which means that it's an extra step. You can't do it one-handed as easily as you can with the Peak Design bag, but once you put something in there, and this is a big pocket, it's very large and very deep, so you can put a lot of stuff in there, and if you have something that you're worried is going to fall out, pulling this strap closed at the top actually really securely closes the top of that pocket, which means that stuff's not gonna fall out. And I really appreciated that because I've put even small lenses in here. I've put smaller cameras in here, and that's something that as I put my bag down on the ground, I don't want to risk it falling out. You could even put smaller stuff in here that might have a small risk of falling out of the Peak Design bag. I've never had it happen, but I do like that you can completely close this just for that extra peace of mind. So while you can access your gear from the side on both of these bags, only the Thinktank bag also has rear access. So you could lay this down and you can open it up and you can see all of your gear at once. And that does also mean that you can organize it with some more dividers, put stuff in the middle, whereas everything in this bag has to be accessible from the side. I'm going to put this down for a second so I can show you the last major difference between these bags. Of course, there's a lot of small differences, but to show you the last main difference between these bags, I'm going to put this down, and that's in the dividers. So like I said, with this bag, the Peak Design bag, you can only access stuff from the side. And you have these 3 dividers. There's one that I have right at the bottom, actually. And they're pretty cool dividers. You can flap these things up so you can separate them into some sections that you can very quickly and easily close up or open up to access what's further on in the bag. And it does give you some degree of customizability, even though you can only access things from the side. But these are the only 3 dividers you can get. And what's really bothered me with this bag is that this top divider obviously determines the size of the top section of the bag, and you can only put it up so high in the bag because the Velcro stops at a certain point. And if I want more space in the bottom of the bag, then I can push this up and fold it so that way I have more space here. But as soon as I remove whatever's there, a camera or a lens, the weight of what's on top is going to push this back down. And obviously everything originally fits, it's gonna fit again. You can just push this back up and put it in, but it has been quite annoying at some times when every time I remove something, then this flaps down and I have to, shift everything. I have to push up what's in the top of the bag again and try to squeeze it in. It can be a little bit annoying. And although the Velcro on this bag in particular really holds these dividers in place with no problem, the weight of a lens or a camera is not going to remove these if you don't have anything under it. Sometimes cheaper bags with this similar design, the divider's Velcro is not strong enough, and when you remove part of what's in there, a camera in the middle for example, the weight of what's on top will often just rip those dividers off, and when you go to open your bag again, everything's all messed up, and that's not something you really want to deal with. The Velcro here is totally fine. I've never had that problem, but what's really cool is the way that Thinktank thought about doing this, and let's show you that now. So inside the Thinktank bag here, you have pretty typical Thinktank dividers, and when we open the back of the bag, you can see a lot more in detail about how everything is set up in here, but I'm not sure how well you can see this. I might have to put some B-roll on here to show you this up in more detail. But they have these like loops on the side of the bag here, right around the edge. And then these dividers, the main dividers, actually have this kind of Velcro at the edge of it that you can loop through those loops in the bag, and that holds it in place. So no matter how hard you push, this is not going to fall out of place under the weight of whatever's on top of it. So you could put a ton of heavy stuff in here and it's just not going to budge, no matter how much you jump or move around or whatever. Even if there's nothing under it to support that, these little loops are going to hold that in place, and I love that. It's a really, really smart way to do this. And they have this extra folding section, so if you want to keep this straight, like I have it now, you can use this small part of Velcro to hold it in place. But if you want to fold this down so that way you have an extra space here, you can then move this type of Velcro, this extra flap here, and loop that through the support loops, I guess you could call it. So no matter how you configure this, you're able to lock that in there really securely. And I really, really like that. It's a really smart way to deal with the issue that most bags have to face. The Peak design is the only other bag besides this with this type of design that I've not had that problem with. So really smart, really double safe way to design these dividers here in this bag. Now when we open the back of the bag, there's two things to point out, and one is that it has this computer flap on the back here so you can put in your laptop, and I fit my 15-inch MacBook Pro in here. It's a little bit tight, but it does fit, and this is really thick and padded, so it's totally safe in there. And squeezing it in there doesn't feel as dangerous, I guess, as squeezing it into the Peak design bag where it's theoretically supposed to fit, but that feels like I'm just really worried to wear it when I have my computer in there because I don't want to break it by bending my back in a weird way. This is totally safe, and it's rigid, it's protected very, very well, and they did a good job there. But it is kind of a maximum 15-inch MacBook Pro if you're curious. Now inside the bag you get tons of dividers here, and I'm not even sure if this is all of them. I might have taken some of them out. But you got like these type with Velcro on only one side, so you can lift them up out of the way to reach something when you're accessing it from the side. You have standard dividers with Velcro on both sides. You have these two large main thick dividers with those loops, like I said, that loop into the support on the side of the bag. And these are also kind of indented 2/3 of the way through on both of them. So if you want to fold that down so that way you can put like the camera body in there, or something else that takes up that space, you can do that. You can customize it however you want. Let me just do that really quick to show you. Loosen up this Velcro here, so now this can move freely, and you could lift it up like this to divide that in a different way. And then, like I said, this extra little flap that's here will now loop through that support on the side of the bag, so that way this also doesn't fall out of place when you remove something from the bag to support that structure. And then if you hold it down again and go straight, this will just flap out of the way, and you're going to use the second piece of Velcro to loop through the closest, which one was it? The closest little loop on the side of the bag to give it that extra support. And sorry, this is really awkward to do while I'm holding it and trying to look at the camera. So in terms of depth for this bag, like I said, I'm not sure how the 13 is smaller, if it's shallower or if it's just smaller, like physically height and width wise, but with the 15 at least, this is the Canon EOS R, and I can fit this in here sideways, and there's still a little bit of space. So if you're putting a gripped camera in here, for example, the 1DX Mark II, or some Nikon camera or whatever, you should have plenty of space to put it flat with that extra size that those Pro bodies have. But this one fits in, for example. This is, pretty standard size, almost the same size as the DSLR, like a 5D Mark IV. Then, it'll fit in sideways, no problem. If you put just lenses in here, the one thing that I found is this is a little bit deep. So if you put a lens in this space, there is some space on the top of it for it to wobble around. Again, these dividers are really solid, so it's not gonna jump out of place in the bag. The back of the bag is also really solid, so this is not gonna like bend and loop and give extra space for the lenses or whatever to hop over these dividers when you have the bag closed. But it is pretty deep. It's deeper than I expected it to be, so just be aware of that. You could stand lenses in here, of course. This is the 16 to 35 f4 LIS, and if it was not on the camera right now, it could basically just stand up vertically in the bag. So it's a tight fit at that point with the lens hood on. If I reverse the lens hood, this size lens could fit in here standing with no problem. Now, in terms of comfort, this bag is very comfortable. Even when it's heavy, these straps have this little extra support strap on here, and if you pull that tight, it kind of just pulls the weight onto you in a really nice way, really comfortable way. And these shoulder pads, of course, are really padded, but it feels really good even if you have it packed full. And this is a large bag, so you can fit a lot in here, and it can get pretty heavy. But I walked around with it in Tokyo for hours and hours and hours, and I really didn't feel tired at all. I mean, not as tired as I would have with pretty much any other camera bag, including the Peak design, which is already very comfortable. And it's smaller, so it can't fit as much stuff in it either, but this is really nice. And I loved it for that trip, especially because I could put camera stuff in the main part, and then the top part is not huge, but I could fit enough, for one day out. I wanted to go with me. I have 3 kids, so I can fit a towel, some wipes and tissues and stuff like that in this top section. And I had my family area and my camera area. It worked out really well for that. So for traveling, it worked out great for me. Obviously, you can use it however you want, but it's a very versatile bag. You can customize it really in such a huge array of different setups that it's not even worth showing you. And again, for the smaller details, things like where the pockets are and stuff like that, you can check the website and you'll see all the details there. I'm not going to ramble on about that, but I wanted to point out the things that I really enjoyed about this bag, the things that maybe I thought were a little bit disappointing, especially at first. But the one point I want to make is that even those points, I've overcome all of them. I've gotten used to all of them, and this is probably my favorite bag at the moment. Like I said, when I need to carry, obviously a good amount of gear. Also to point out that although at first glance it may appear pretty similar to something like the Peak Design Everyday Backpack, there are quite a few differences in how it works and how it's set up. So don't think that it's totally like the same thing. You're going to get something different when you get this bag in your hands. It's not the same as that. So if you have any questions or comments, please let me know down below and I will do my best to get back to you. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Maybe share it if you'd like. I'd really appreciate that. And as always, thank you for watching.